Did you pause for us to laugh? I
No,
felt for a second. I thought you paused for us to laugh at your mistake, but I didn't want to start laughing and interrupt you, so I.
Oh, the sausage.
Same here. That
thing?
was funny.
Yeah.
The sausage.
Sausage!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Quackcast number 310. This is Ozone Ocean. With me is the fantastic Mr. Baines. Hello, fantastic Mr. Baines.
Hello.
To fantastic Mrs. Pitface, because she's married to Mr. Pitt, who she killed.
Congratulations.
Took his name, and so that's how it happened. So, congratulations are in order, but yeah, we'll bail you out of prison.
She killed him. She killed him before she married and took his money. She did it backwards. She's silly. Not the way you're supposed to do it.
It was possible.
I just like to do things my way.
And then we have
Who cares where you start?
Yeah. Oh, very good, Baines. Very good.
Oh, see, I'm learning. I'm learning from you.
But we cannot forget to introduce the brilliant Ms. Tanzarine. See, I haven't forced her into some relationship that she didn't want to be in.
You know me so well.
So we're going to be talking about the starts because Hyena Hell has done her second news post about the beginnings of stories starting and structure and all that kind of stuff. Do you know topics which we have covered in from various directions in different Quackcasts, but this is a good kind of, straightforward take on it, and I'd like to talk about, and we have some great responses underneath as well, which we hopefully will get to, from brilliant people like Paul Eberhardt and Baines and Bravo. All the good people. No Kim Luster, unfortunately, but there is a Kim Luster, damn it, there is.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm surprised. She usually comments.
Fantastic. So we're going to have a great time. And there's a whole lot of marvelous illustrations that won't show up on the Quackcast. But you can go and check out the news post and see them. I hope you will, because they're good. But before we get into that,
yes,
let's give everybody the featured comic, which Kwai Dagaxe has given us, and it's called The Squirrel and the Sausage. No, it's not. It's called The Archer and the Squirrel by Tyback. So, take it away, Kwai Dagaxe.
Hello, this is Kwai Dagaxe, and my feature this week is The Archer and the Squirrel by Tyback, and it is rated E for everyone. Deep in the forest lives a pale white squirrel that might not be a squirrel at all, and it instills fear in the hearts of the country folk who believe it to be an evil beast. The prince of the kingdom has vowed not to marry a bride until the creature has been killed as a testament to the power this squirrel has on the people. There's one brave soul among the crowd, a female archer who has ventured into the forest hoping to kill the beast and renew a sense of calm to the land. Her compassionate side shines through as one of her strengths when she assists an injured bird that was left to die in the forest. This is a story about good versus evil, girl versus nature, archer versus squirrel. The art is beautiful. It is a combination of black ink, handwritten letters, and watercolor paint on textured watercolor paper. If you're a fan of comics drawn in a traditional art style, then this is a must-read. Please read The Archer and the Squirrel by Tyback to follow the young archer deep into the dark woods and discover if she will come across the legendary squirrel. Rated E.
See, that was Kwai Dagaxe talking about The Archer and the Squirrel, which is a beautiful comic. Looks like it's all sort of watercolored and it's sexy.
Yeah, man, it looks really nice.
Mm-hmm.
It does. Rated E for everyone, so it's not that sexy. So then we come to the music that Mr. Gunwallace has given us, and surprise, surprise, Gumwallis has given us music to a little comic that you may have just heard of, The Archer and the Squirrel.
Wow!
Wow.
Oh, that worked out.
It did. So I would describe this music as launching abruptly, like an arrow springing from a bow. This tune follows a beautiful arcing path against a bright blue sky of melodic rhythmic flute that begs you to dance a jig with a great big grin on your face.
So awesome.
Take it away, Mr. Gumwallis. And that was our music by Gumwallis, a lovely little folk tune to a very folk tale kind of comic, so it fits well. So, we're going to be talking about Hyena Hell's post about starts, where to start and where to begin, same thing basically. And basically stories, a bit about story structure, but yeah, mainly about starts. And she sort of outlined a couple of different things to keep in mind, like, the present, the past, and the future, and how that has a bearing on where you start the story. Because, you can start in the future, you can start in the past with a flashback, or you could start just from the present. I normally start from the present myself, because that's a simple way to go, and I'm a simple guy. What about you guys? Where do you normally start?
I'm about the same from the present too.
Yeah.
Me
Me too.
Maybe I won't now. Maybe this is giving me food for thought. Maybe I'll try starting something from I'm just not used to. I'm not good at working backwards like that or anything. So I might muddle myself up. It'd be cool to try.
I think Baines, you've
I-
done that. I'll go on, Tan. Sorry.
No, I was saying I also like to start from the present, but I choose it like to be very actiony or have really high stakes, and then I often stop and go back in a flashback that loops all the way back to the present, and then I continue linearly. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. With Fotis, I remember now you starts off. Yeah.
You did. I recall. Yeah, because I don't normally think of Without Moonlight in that kind of way. I think of it in a more kind of traditional story sense. Yeah, but it does bounce back. Yeah, it does. What about you, Baines? How do you? I know you. I've just got it in my head that you have done like flashbacks or start and then going back.
I've done I've had flashbacks, but that's not the question. I know I've done some within stories. I've done flashbacks here and there. I've done whole episode flashbacks or whole issue flashbacks, but actually I've never begun a story anywhere. And I was surprised too. I read Hyena Hell's post and I thought about it. I've always kind of started at the start at the beginning, and it's very, very sort of the usual way. The main reason for the webcomic being it's not all it's all sort of written. The story is written overall, but the dialogue is not done. The pages aren't drawn ahead of time. I'm kind of posting as I go, with maybe a small buffer, usually no buffer, so that if I was revising it before posting the webcomic, I would maybe play with the structure a little more. But yeah,
join the club.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of us post webcomics that way. But yeah, if I had the whole thing and then I could sort of shuffle things around, I might do it a bit. But, the usual way works pretty well.
I think you you have to have a reason to not start at the beginning, in a sense. Like, you want to make a specific statement, or you want, I mean, there has to be a point why you would bounce around, in my opinion,
Yes.
rather than, start at the beginning or start sort of at the present, in a sense. Maybe it's not the beginning of the story, but it's present. To start at the past, there should be some kind of reason to do it.
Right.
Maui.
Pardon me, that was me. I'm sorry.
Sorry, guys.
You really
Maui!
squeaked them out.
I agree with that. I remember hearing the Simpsons writers say that, and I'm sure I said this before, but they use like the Dick Van Dyke Show method, where they'll start with a scene after the whole adventure has happened. It's like a completely separate scene, and I think I comment this. I make this comment later anyway, but they'll say, "You won't believe the week I've had," or what happened to you, Bill? Or whatever, and then he'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm exhausted. I had a hell of a week." And that show did that all the time. The Simpsons did it a few times, but that first scene has nothing to do with the story really. But it seems to give it some kind of I don't know, gravitas, or it just prepares you or something like that. It's a device that always seems to work according to that.
It makes you as a reader or audience more interested and engaged, because you think, why would, normally when a story starts, why would you really care about what's happening, what's in it for you? But if you've got two characters talking, you're already sort of, identifying or engaging with these two people as people. And one of them says, okay, so my week was like, it's a hell of a week. And you think, oh, why was it a hell of a week for this person? Do tell. I want to know. Because it relates to him. So you've got to find out for his sake. So yeah, that's a good idea. Clever.
And doesn't a lot of classic literature, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head. Maybe you guys can, because I haven't read anything in years. But like a lot of classics will start with like it's a narrator who meets another person, and that other person tells the story of the whatever the book is.
Yeah.
I always wondered why they did that. Like, it's like, why are you doing that? It feels more realistic or something. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Of course.
Yeah, I do. I can't seem to remember any book that does that per se.
I can.
Usually what I have been used to seeing is like the either the narrator or the mental voice of the main character, depending on the point of view that the whole novel is being told in. They make a statement that is, very interesting. For example, I never liked so-and-so because, and that's because for whatever reason he was an asshole or something. Oh my God, bleep this. And then and that's why I killed him. So already it's an interesting premise, and it promises blood, or it promises like a dramatic situation, and then he begins normally from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is one way to do it. The one that does come to my head is not from a novel. It's from Tangled, which is Finn starts the narration and says, "This is the story of my death," and immediately your interest is piqued. Not the least of which, like, how is he narrating it to me? If it's the story of his death, is he a ghost or something?
Yeah. So you immediately got something for the audience to work out. And
American Beauty kind of starts that way. Not quite what you're saying, I don't think, but
I think that was a popular convention in basically everything before 1900 and a bit after it, and there were some people still doing it in a retro style, like H.P. Lovecraft still was doing that, still hanging on to that old thing. But everybody did it classic writers like Edgar Allan Poe always had it. You know,
My favorite book starts off that way, the Iliad, which is about as classic as you can get, and it starts exactly with, you know, Homer saying that it was the wrath of Achilles that brought the doom upon the Achaeans, and then he goes back after the start, after he kind of exposes, you know, gets the reader in the way that you guys were saying, like, you know, there's this big horrible thing that happened, right? And then he goes back, and then the story actually begins as the argument with Agamemnon is about to begin. Mm-hmm. So he does that too. And so maybe that's
powerful. Actually, yeah, that's a powerful device. Really, like it sets you up for like, oh man, stuff's gonna be bad.
Pull yourself in, man.
Yeah. Basically, what you're saying is the way we do our comics is shit. We should be doing this. This is how we should. Damn it! I need to rewrite everything. It's all rubbish. Everything needs to change now.
I always think of a movie I watched a million times when I worked at the video store is called Fallen with Denzel Washington. Underappreciated movie. And it starts with, I want to tell you about the time I almost died. Or the time I died. And it's like, it starts at the end. You know, there's a scene right near the end of the movie, or basically the last scene of the movie. That's where it starts. But you have no context. And then you go back. The book Ghost Story starts the same way. It's pretty much the last sequence, but you don't know what's going on. And then by the time you get there at the end of the book, you know what's going on, and everything is the opposite of what you thought.
Yeah. And this is different from foreshadowing. It's not quite the same thing.
Yes,
foreshadowing
it is different. Yeah,
it's really badly used. We talked about this before when we did a whole thing about foreshadowing and stuff like that. And this convention in anime where they begin like is saying, or they often end an episode and start. They end a series, so they have 6 episodes or whatever, and that ends the first part of the series, and then they go into the second part, and they'll do that by saying, and we would never be happy again after this moment. We didn't realize, how many tears were to come. That kind of thing is just, it's bad. That's bad because you're letting people in. You're spoiling people's emotional landscape for the story. You're setting that up. You're not setting the actual story up, but you're messing with people's emotional reactions to it, which is, I don't think that's a very clever way to go myself, because that should be set up within the content of the story, not your narration.
So maybe that's a kind of a failed way of trying to build people up for what's coming, but you don't do it in a correct way, in an effective way.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really poor. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to insert that in there. So,
yeah.
Because often we talk about these things, we talk them up as if, this is a good way to go, this is the best, and there's no downsides, and you can do it wrong, and that's an example of doing it wrong. So, interesting people intellectually, but forcing an emotional kind of interest. You can't do that, I think. You have to have it. That has to be there in the story itself. You can't just say. Sad part coming up.
Yeah. Feel sad. Be invested.
Exactly. So let's see what Pitt talks about. Also the future as well. So we are sort of...
Who does?
Hyena does.
Wait, did I say Pitt? I get Pitt and Hyena confused. They're the same. They're both Americans. What's the difference? You guys all know each other, right? It's all related. But we are sort of organically talking about future, past, all that kind of thing. That is all related. Should we bring up what our audience have said
Sure.
I think we'll jump to the most interesting part of it, which is Bravo, of course, as always. Baines.
Bravo's first comment.
Yeah.
Start in the middle, and go backwards and forwards at the same time, like that animal from Dr. Dolittle.
And that is disturbingly sexual. Disturbingly sexual. Oh God, that's a topic for another time. And Kim Luster has, speaking of disturbingly sexual, Kim Luster has commented, I'm sure this isn't at all, but I'll try and do it anyway. She says, "Oh, this is really good stuff, and greatly written in a matter-of-fact, smack-talky kind of way. Awesome. Stories I've written and my comic here, I tend to begin the story in the middle after some big event, often tragic, and start filling the reader as the story moves along. Totally unsure if I did it right, but too late to edit now." I love that.
Sure, she did too.
It's disturbing. You're halfway there.
Yeah.
I totally spoiled the whole thrust of that post, but yeah, that was a good explanation. What about you, Baines? You have done a post here. God, talking that Kim Luster voice robbed all the oxygen from my brain.
I'm like, you cracked me up. I'm a fan of starting after the end. Damn, what's wrong, Patty? You won't believe what I've been through. And starting in the middle or at the lowest point or even the end is cool too. Thinking about my own stories, I've started every one at the beginning, except one that started with a dream sequence, actually.
Ooh. You started all your stories at the beginning except for a dream sequence. So how does
I believe so, unless I'm misremembering one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this might be a dream sequence. You might be misremembering everything. So
this whole thing is, yeah.
One can only hope.
How did the dream sequence differ from starting at the beginning? Isn't a dream sequence starting at the beginning in a way?
It is. But Hyena Hell in her article talks about starting as a dream sequence. I don't know if she explains it, but she just makes a reference to starting in a dream sequence, and that's the only one of my stories I could think of that didn't just start with, here's the world as it is and the characters as they are, and then something happens. Like this one actually starts with it's kind of a hallucination / whatever, it's an altered, but the story is still super linear. It's like just how
I did the same
got
thing.
to where I needed to get to. Yeah.
I think you must have copied me. That's it.
Probably.
I did the same thing. I've got a it's not really the start of a story, but it is. Because I'm going along in the story as normal, and then I just break for a whole new chapter about a dream sequence that doesn't fit anywhere. It's just because I wanted to do fantasy. So,
right.
How else can you do fantasy in a story that's not fantasy unless you do a dream sequence? That's
exactly.
how you do it, and I just bounce into it. God, that's fun. Dream sequences.
It is.
Are
I
the
kind of
bomb.
want to do that now. Like I know they got this reputation of being cop-outs, but I just want to try it. I just want to have some fun, guys. I just want to have some fun.
They have a reputation of being cop-outs, like alternate reality things you made? Or?
Yeah, sometimes. I'm not saying in your case, and I'm not saying
the whole it was
yeah.
No, just in general. I'm talking
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to know what you meant. I didn't realize that. I might have heard that.
I think, yeah, if you're saying when it ends, you say, oh, it was all a dream, just like Tant said, then it's a cop-out. But if it begins as a dream, then it's not so much because...
Yeah, I didn't say that correctly.
Yeah.
Or if you leave hints in the dream that it's a dream, like allow your audience to understand
exactly
before you announce it, that it's probably not absolutely real. Probably.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. That's a good way to go. So then you're not cheating people. That's the thing. So, because, you know, when you say it's all a dream, then it has no effect on, like, the story with the characters, and you've sort of built up the expectation that it does. That's when you're cheating your readers. So you don't normally want to do that. Unless you do. That's fine. Go ahead, cheat the bastards. But
yeah, doing that rug pull, like people can, especially at the end, obviously, yeah, people can feel like, what? Oh man,
yeah,
I was all into this.
Was it best?
You know, the biggest dream sequence cop out was in Twilight, like the end battle. Spoilers for anyone, sorry. Not sorry, but the
hashtag.
But like they have this
sorry.
battle with deaths left and right, and you know, decapitations and stuff and everything, and
awesome.
And devastating stuff that is going on. And then it was all a dream.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah.
What a bitch.
Yeah.
Psych! You bought another movie ticket. Number 8.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh damn! Yeah, that is a real cheat. I hate that.
Just when you think that the story has, you know, a pair somewhere, doesn't. It was a dream.
Yeah.
Actually, talking about that, I've seen a few stories that started this way, or at least incorporated aspects of that. Like, a character will walk up to someone and like punch him in the face, and have this great big argument and go off, and then film straight back to where, like, we totally rewind and we work out, oh, that was the character's fantasy. The character wished he could have done that, but instead he goes up and talks to the character normally. That's a good way of starting a scene or a sequence, because then you can rush into some kind of nonsensical action, you know, some ultra violence or whatever, but it doesn't have an effect on the story. It's just you're being let in on the psyche of the character. Why does he want to punch this guy in the face, you know? Why does he want things to... Yeah, so that's a good way of doing
something.
Yeah.
And
that would be pretty rare at the beginning of a story, though, to do that.
That would be good comedy as well, once you have the stakes in.
Yeah. It's happened. I've seen it. I can't give you...
High Fidelity has a sequence like that, right? Remember? He has with Tim Robbins. He has like sort of 3 imaginary sequences in a row where he's like, you know, this is the guy who's now dating his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend. And he imagines,
awesome. He comes into the record shop and has this kind of awkward meeting with the ex-boyfriend, who is the protagonist. And the protagonist, I can't remember his name, imagines that he is beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, well, first he imagines like getting kind of gangster with the guy. He's like, "Get out of here!" Like he sort of like gets really. I don't remember what he says, but he's like really cool and tough. Like tells him to get out, and then it just cuts back. He's still sitting behind the counter, and he jumps over the counter, and him and his friends like sort of beat the guy and like smash him with an air conditioner and stuff like that. Then it cuts back, and like what really happens? He just sits there silently, like, lets the guy leave. Doesn't even say anything.
Oh, that's beautiful. You could begin a story that way, and it would be unusual.
That'd be tough.
Catch attention.
It would have to be a specific kind of story. I think you'd want to be. It's hard for me to imagine something like that working, unless it was like A Secret Life of Walter Mitty or something like that, and that's what the story was about. Just as a gimmick at the beginning of like a standalone story, that would be tough. It would have to be right, you know. It wouldn't always work.
No, it would have to be a very singular piece, but it would really set things up. Well, there's a post from Hyena Hell. I think Pitface, you're the perfect Hyena Hell reader of a Hyena Hell post.
Right. Yeah.
Since you're the same person.
Yeah. Since I've been working on the same long form comic for something like 15 years, I don't have a lot of beginnings. Maybe a lot of endings, but not many beginnings. And you're right, she didn't say that. It was witty in my head, but then it wasn't that witty. In my writing for the Hub, which is broken up, it's in more or less episodic chapters. In my shorter strips and comics, I tend to use the formula of pretty normal stuff happening, then something disrupts that normacy. I start the plot moving. To start the plot moving. This is basically the formula for every sitcom ever. My favorites to study for structure are Seinfeld and, believe it or not, Great Acres. I got a strong affinity for the absurd, obviously. I try to get to the part where the conflict or disruption causes the characters to react or act as quickly as possible. But if you do it well, there's definitely a payoff for purposely misdirecting your reader so as where things are headed, misdirecting your reader as to where things are headed. You just have to walk a razor-thin line between anticipation and Jesus Christ, is there a point to this thing? Structuring writing is something I'll talk about in future posts.
Now that was sexy. No one's going to argue with that.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh my god. I'm so wet.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, it's raining. What can you expect? No, so... So, who's after Hyena? It's you, Baines.
It's me. And I say, I agree.
Sorry.
Agreed. See? And establishing things as they are before something disrupts the status quo is the way stories are constructed, pretty much always. I think a flashback or flash forward or some kind of a scary, a funny, an intriguing set piece at the beginning is sort of an extra piece to goose the audience a bit or establish whatever tone the story is going to have. Then the story proper starts at the beginning. I was thinking of horror movies in particular because I like them, like where they often will start with normal people going to camp or normal people going on a road trip or on a road trip or whatever. But a lot of times there'll be a separate scene at the beginning to establish that it's a horror movie. So some random characters, mountain climbers will be killed, or people not in the main cast will be killed, or it's a flashback, like in the beginning of Halloween or whatever. When
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, dude. Oh yeah, and Halloween. You're right.
Yeah,
I forget about that little part with little Mikey.
How did Texas Chainsaw start?
Well, they have the part, that exposition in the beginning where it actually starts after the bodies have been found, and there's that voiceover with the radio. Yeah, and then it goes and cuts back into the teenagers driving the van.
Okay, yeah. I forgot about that, actually. I'll watch that again. That's creepy. Yeah. Still.
Great movie.
It is. And Texas Chainsaw 2, which is, you got to see that. It's right up your alley. It's amazing. Nobody's seen it.
It's terrible that I haven't yet, man.
It's so good. I'll send it to you, maybe. I'll buy another copy. Yeah. I think, maybe I might be wrong, but I think you'd like it. It's sort of way over the top and very watchable.
Awesome.
But it starts with two characters. I mean, this is a horror trope. You just see two random characters dying, and then you start the story. So I always think of that as sort of like tone establishing thing. It's kind of starting at the beginning, but more than that, it's like to establish this is a horror movie. or this is a comedy, or this is a whatever.
Make sure
And then
you
you can-
walk into the wrong film on accident. Like, oh, I was going to go watch Little Mermaid. No, you don't right where you tell
Oh,
me.
and Little Mermaid 2 is also a bloodbath, but that's another.
Well, if we had the original, it would be, you know.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Very grim, very grim. All tongues being ripped out and that kind of thing. Oh, disgusting.
Exactly.
So we have Bravo next, and we haven't given Tance a voice yet. Like the Little Mermaid, we stole her tongue.
I thought I was learning very successfully, apparently. No.
No.
Okay. Oh, Bravo. Start at the climax. Go up to a cliffhanger. Then go back to how they got there. Then, of course, you have to decide what is the beginning for the story you'll be telling. Does typical Strange start at Oscar's birth, or even his graduation from college? Then there's non-linear, goddammit, storytelling. The narrative jumps around throughout the story and only goes over how it all relates at the end. Slaughterhouse-Five has always been my favorite. Though there, the protagonist was unstuck in time and lived his life out of sequence. Catch-22 begins in the middle, and the climax is a final complete telling of a flashback, and only then does it become linear to the end. But by then, the book is 3/4 done. Then there's the old trick of writing it in sequence, throwing all the chapters into a pile and telling the story in the order you pick them up off the floor.
Yeah. Page
Sorry for that.
What's that, Tance?
Sorry for reading terribly and not understanding the syntax. Very easily.
I thought it sounded fine.
Yeah, it sounded perfect. You should have.
Is that what Slaughterhouse-Five is all out of order?
Yeah, I was going to say Tance should have read the post out of order, just pick sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would have been terrible.
That's how I normally do them.
Christopher Nolan's, totally. His first movie was called Following, about this dude who follows people, and then he ends up following someone who gets him into trouble. It's kind of a classic film noir story, but it's completely jumbled. Like, all the scenes are completely out of... That's the only movie I can think of offhand that is that way, and it's a pretty confusing watch.
Yeah,
for a fairly straightforward story.
That can make it really hard to follow stuff, yeah, so you got to be careful. I think people do, it's a stylistic choice. It's not really a good way to tell a story, but it's a good way to sort of, make it interesting or make it different, really, more than anything else. With Kurt Vonnegut and his Slaughterhouse-Five and all that kind of stuff, there's a good point to that, because he's sort of his characters have this kind of meta reality in that everything's sort of very dreamlike, or there's an alien abduction sort of thing behind the way he does his writing. So that's that's a bit of strangeness in there. So that's an actual reason for it to be out of order, because as you said, people are unstuck in time. And there's a reason for it, because the reality of what they experience is so bizarre, and either they imagine themselves abducted by aliens or have actually been abducted, and they've become mixed up because of it. So there is a good reason for it. It's not just a stylistic choice, as it is like for most people who do it.
Right.
So you can make it work, though. You can, but as you said, Baines,
Sure.
it makes it easier to be nonsense, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Oh, not nonsense, but
There was this.
hard to follow.
There was this film.
Yeah.
I forget the title of, but basically it looks very nonsensical until the very end. Like, there are scenes that look like normal, people chatting in a room, so to speak, but then something completely out of that reality occurs, and then you are just shoved into this other scene that again goes on normally, but then you look back to something else, and it looks all over the place until in the end you sort of zoom out of that person's, the main character's point of view, and you realize that everything that you have been seeing and the gradual breaking down of the reality that you are witnessing in this difference in how the scenes are connected and everything is because there has been an accident on the bridge, and we are witnessing this character's last thoughts and as his body is shutting down just before death, and basically all the issues that he is struggling with as he's dying, which I thought it was very creative, but the payoff, which is at the end, that it is so difficult to work through the movie that you might not get to the payoff in the end. Although it is worth it if you know that there is a payoff, and you never get a clue to that. So, yeah, the point of all of that is that you can have what Bravo has described, but if you don't give a clue to your audience that the payoff is there, you might lose most of your audience until,
Right.
before you get there.
That's a good point. Yeah, this is it's tricky too, because that is a classic twist to have that. There's the famous story by, I think, Ambrose Bierce called Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, which is very similar to what you're saying, Tans. And that was a story where, you find out at the end that the characters actually was dying. This is the moment before death, and all this stuff has not. In that case, the character wasn't sort of working through things. The character has actually imagined some brilliant escape and all this kind of stuff was happening, but it didn't. He gets hanged. But you don't want to. The problem with that is you can't really give them too much clues about what's going to happen, because you would ruin that ending. So you have to be careful with that, don't you? You have to sort of leave.
You just have to give them enough to trust, not the clues to the ending necessarily, but that it's getting somewhere. Like, you know what you're doing, not just for shock value or
exactly.
Like in The Cell, there's this movie called The Cell, which is like a very stupid movie, basically, with a lot of quote-unquote artistic, edgy, disturbing imagery that leads to nowhere. I mean, you could have told the story without, all that really disturbing things that you suspect are the director's fantasies, and you really didn't want to know that.
Oh, lovely. I must watch it now.
TMI.
So I have a post here about beginnings. It's rather facetious. I think I
No.
should read it. No.
Go for it.
Okay, my best Ozone Ocean voice. No, my best Kim Luster voice. Okay, so I like to start slow, tease the audience a little, just feather-light kisses of a story to begin with. A little nibble here, a light caress there, just to warm them up, Then I'll get a bit more serious, a little more hot and heavy. I'll chew on them for a while and lick vents into shape. This is so stupid. Lick vents into shape.
You wrote that on purpose that way.
I did. Just when they're ready for the first climax, I'll switch things up and go in deep. That'll surprise them, but they'll be ready for it. I'll ease in slow till they're used to it. that I'll work up a nice rhythm and plot events. Rhythm with the plot and events as I lead them up to the true story climax. Then maybe I'll change around positions of events and characters just to get a bit penetration of ideas. Then I'll increase the pace and drive the story hard and fast towards the ultimate reveal. And a disappointing climax that will leave them sore and unfulfilled. Too bad. Try again next time. Practice makes perfect. I think I over-egged it. You don't even need the sexy voice for that one. It's just straight. Sorry, that really wasn't much of a description of a beginning of a story. Just the attempt just to be stupid. But we have Paul Eberhard here, and Pitface, I think it's your turn to give us some Paul Eberhard.
Am I here? All right, I'll give you more than you can handle. Here we go. Mm-hmm. All right. Awesome post. All of these ways of starting have an appeal, depending on what kind of story it's supposed to be, provided they're done right. As my comic deliberately has only a very loose narrative frame instead of a grand overarching plot. You might say it's more of the soap opera type. Way back, I kickstarted it with a few old scribblings and then went right into the middle. I just wanted to get on with it at the time, even if I considered the beginning rather wonky from the start. I've often thought about going back to it and making a proper prologue, but it'd come across as me trying to be a prequel. And if there's anything I really loathe, it's prequels. As a rule, that is. Besides, new readers tend to grasp immediately what's going on, no matter where they start. The setup is quite uncomplicated after all. And he goes on to say, which makes... Sorry, my nose is a little stuffy. No, just a second. Mom! I'm on the radio show! It's calling me. Anyway. Which brings me to an important point. The bulk of readers of a webcomic often flock in only when the story has already been on its way for a while. That's a good point. And many don't have the time and patience to work through an archive containing 100 pages straight away, if at all, no matter how awesome it is. So it's often a good idea to have some kind of rough outline of what's going on to pave the way for them until they've had a chance of catching up. That can be a beginning of the more concise sort, or an extra page listing the main cast and perhaps giving a short synopsis. After all, popular webcomics of the larger sort have that somewhere, just like TV series. However, the problem that causes is it somewhat limits you with the beginning, namely how much mystery of elements or surprise you can effectively put in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's because that can be a spoiler. It can be tricky. You could sort of breadcrumb it by doing sort of separate synopsises for chapters, so that way you wouldn't spoil it all in the beginning when they first start. You could just, as they get to a new chapter, there is a new, like a recap of what happened before with the previous chapter and so on, rather than just sticking it all at the very beginning of the thing. So you can't just go to the one page. You sort of, at the ends of chapters, you have a synopsis. So that would be a good way. And it only is a synopsis of the previous chapter maybe and a bit before. So, I mean, you don't have every synopsis just, recounting every single thing cumulatively. Right. Which would leave you, with an enormous, what's that song about the partridge in a pear tree? 2 dozen maids, blah, 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 and a partridge in a pear tree.
I think that if you have, if the story isn't sequential in a way, like having separate episodes. You can easily just have like the main plot, what is the main issue that the characters are resolving, and leave it at that. Because the audience will be able to jump in. So you don't actually need to make a synopsis if you know that, you know what, there are these guys and they're trying to do this or they're trying to go there, and the issue, the big hurdle is that. Go.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing.
Yeah, that works if you can broadly surmise the whole thing. Well, why not do it that way? So for Pinky TA, when I first started getting that really popular, I realized, hang on, I'm going to come across this problem with new readers jumping in and not knowing what the hell's going on. And I don't have that, I don't have exposition in my stories because I hate exposition. So there's nothing for people to catch up on, really. There's nothing that really surmises it. So I did an intro page, and I did that kind of stuff, I had pictures, and I gave an intro to the world and everything, all the crap that you would hate to read at the start of a story. I had as an extra thing, so you don't have to read it. It's not like it won't really give you any more, view of the story that you would otherwise not have. It's just to help you if you do need it. So that's a good thing, as opposed to exposition, which is annoying usually, because you could do it well, but most of the time it's not done well, is it?
Right. Yeah.
Especially, say in Pinky TA, that's in an alternative 1920s, basically Crimea, Russia, Ukraine kind of area, which is automatically, that's sort of a complicated thing to understand, and nobody really wants that in the start of a story. Okay, this is set in an alternative 1920s, the war, blah, blah, World War I didn't happen, blah, 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 people wear different, like, arseless chaps, whatever. I'm going to justify this, and they can have pink hair if they want, blah, 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 blah. Timelines, that's crap if it's part of a story, but if it's like an intro page, you can take it or leave it. It'll just help those poor defenseless innocents who are just completely lost. They can.
Yeah. Used Books has occasional, periodical summaries like what is going on, this and this and this, and who is who. That and very meticulously so, might I add. I'm impressed that she takes the time to do all that.
Wow.
But yes, it does. For everyone to catch up and not having to go through her enormous archive.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to say, as as my duties in doing what do I do? Featured comics, yeah. I so appreciate that. Oh my god, I love it when people do those synopsises, because it allows me just to jump in and know what's what. And when I'm doing like the review, even if I've read through a whole comic, I still can't remember people's names or
sure.
Yeah, bits and pieces like that. And I want to have the names listed. I want to say, now this character did this and this and this, and this character did this in my little intro, in my little feature for the comic. And I don't want to have to read through the first 50 pages to see where the character bloody mentions his name, because usually people only have the character's name mentioned like once or twice in a whole bloody chapter. And Tanserine, when I featured your comics, that's been a help. Because, it takes ages to just... I know the character's name now, but I didn't when I was doing the features. And it really...
I'm sorry. I didn't actually realize that I don't have them mention their names often. They don't, do they?
Who does? You don't...
Yeah.
You don't have that in normal... maybe when you're talking to someone, you go, okay, Tance, listen to me, Tance, whatever. You might... in normal speech, but in
that's only because Tance never listens.
Exactly. Hard to get her attention. She's just ADD. But in like prose, you don't have people doing that because it wastes time and it fills up stuff. So you don't have everyone saying everybody's name and saying
Mm-hmm.
everything obviously. So yeah, there's a good reason not to do that. I don't have anyone
Didn't
call
I
it.
have the cast page? I probably didn't have the cast page then, did I?
You did.
Now I
You've
do.
always had cast pages. It wasn't.
Oh, okay.
You had a lot of placeholders. You were gonna, and which pissed me off because you didn't have all the characters listed, like the Nazis didn't have all their names yet. You were going to do them, but you didn't.
You needed a list.
They are now, though. They are up there now. They have their stories. They're there. Some of them.
Finally filled it out.
But the main ones. All the main ones are there. No.
All the important ones. Typical Strange. For some reason, you do have that, don't you, Baines? I'm not sure because I know all the characters' names. So,
Well, yeah, that's because I for that type of series, it makes like what I think people need to know are like the main characters' names. So it's the header. So like on the header, all the main characters and all their names are there.
No wonder I know it.
That's
every time I look at the comic.
That's why I did that. Yeah, so every page is like all the names.
Oh shit, so clever.
I read a webcomic. I don't remember what it was. I haven't read it in a while, I guess. But I liked it. And what they did was they had a cast, like on every page, they would have a cast list of whoever was on that page and a brief explanation of who they are.
Oh.
So you just get a little Cole's notes of like who's on that page. And that was really handy. So you know kind of who they are in brief and where they're coming from. And it was on the upper side of the page. So you could just glance over and see what's what for context. Menage 3, that webcomic Menage 3 has links to every character that, like sort of tags, I guess, every character that appears on the page. So you can click their name and every page that character appears on will come up, which is quite handy.
I've seen that done. Yeah, that is enormous amount of work. I mean, you could do it easily.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You do it a little more easily now in that, you know, if you tag things and then all you have to do is like do a simple like reference to that tag next time and it can automatically be done for you that way. But that hasn't been around a long time. Comics have been doing this for a while now, and when you had to like search through your bloody archives to find those damn pages where those characters are,
no kidding,
and hard link it, that's a nightmare.
Oh man, no kidding.
It's
but it's figuring it out, right? Because of the weird, like Paul brings up a great point there in his post, like the weird way that people consume webcomics.
It's true. It
helps
people get into it. They know what's what, and it makes sense to them. Yeah, because as Tans was saying, with used books, my God, how many bloody pages has she got in that comic?
Yeah, like
more than 1,000, I think.
Yeah,
and it'll just leave you totally cold, but it helps when you do that. I think when I, as I was saying with Pinky, when I did the whole intro page and stuff when it was getting popular, I also did like links to every chapter, and that would be above the webcomic, and it would be in the form of like pictures of the chapter, and so you could click on that and just bounce to another chapter, and you know, it'd make it much more engaging and easy to follow that way. So
yeah.
I think we're getting away from the beginning of the story here, aren't we? But
yeah, we wandered off a little, yeah.
It's webcomics, isn't it? And it helps people get into a story. It's sort of beginning. It's just a bit more mechanical than artistic.
It's more how the audience begins.
Yes.
That's how we got here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The audience, which is just as important because, you know, either way, the way the story starts or the way the audience gets into it, it's all the same thing, isn't it? You've got to engage those bloody people somehow and get them into it. Whether that's saying it's a dark and stormy night or whether that's saying start here, it's the same thing.
Both beautiful statements, yeah.
Classic. Have any of you guys ever started a story with It was a dark and stormy night?
No.
All the stories start that way.
Everyone?
I think I've done some short stories that way as a joke, but nothing anyone's ever read.
Right.
Why would you? Why would you?
I'm trying to think of how, if I've ever done it.
Because it was a dark and stormy night and my power went out, so I couldn't read it.
Oh, there you go.
There you
So you accidentally typed that?
It was a dark... Yeah, there's a lot of good reasons for doing stories that way. What am I talking about? So, the beginnings. This has been a really enlightening discussion, I think. I think we've covered some really interesting things. I hope people get a lot out of it and listen to it. Maybe we could take some tips and learn how to begin our Quackcasts in a more engaging way.
What do you mean? We are very engaged already. We don't need to be more engaging.
We are the most engaging people ever. In fact, I'm engaged to all of you. And
we are the champions
of the world, my friends. Oh my god, it's such a great piece of music. Yeah. So this has been Quackcast number 310, and we have all been the Quackcasters. Ozen Ocean, Pit Face, Tance Arene, and Baines, who only has one
name.
Bane in the ass.
The bane of my life. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Quackcast. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.